The night sky over Earth looked calm, like any other night. The stars were bright, the moon shone softly, and the cities below slept in peace. But high above the clouds, something massive moved without a sound. At first, no one noticed. The satellites that usually scanned space went dark, one after another, as if someone had turned off the sky. Air traffic controllers looked at their screens and saw nothing. But when they looked out the window, they saw the stars disappear behind a dark shape. It was not a cloud. It was something far bigger. The alien fleet had arrived, silent, cold, ready. They didn't send warnings, didn't make threats. They just came, filling the orbit with giant black ships that looked like floating mountains. Their hulls absorbed light, their engines made no sound. Inside, thousands of alien soldiers prepared for the invasion. Their commanders laughed, confident. To them, Earth was weak, a small planet with noisy cities and slow machines. This attack would be quick, but they didn't know the truth. They didn't know what waited for them below. On the ground, strange things began to happen. Power grids in major cities blinked. One moment the lights were on, the next everything went dark. Hospitals switched to backup power. Airports froze mid-operation. Radios crackled with static. No one could contact anyone outside their city. People came out of their homes staring up at the black sky. They couldn't see the ships, but they felt something. The air felt heavy. A quiet pressure wrapped around every building, every street. Even the wind stopped moving. It was the kind of silence that makes your heartbeat sound too loud. In the control room of the alien flagship, a group of alien officers stared at their screens. They had been watching Earth for months, waiting for the right time to attack. Tonight was perfect, no storms, no human defenses in sight. They smiled as their ships spread out in perfect formation, blocking out the stars. But then one of their screens flickered. A red warning appeared for just a second. Then it was gone. The officer dismissed it. A minor glitch, he thought. They didn't know that was their first mistake. Back on Earth, in a small radar station in the mountains, a lone technician watched his screen go blank. The radar had stopped receiving signals, but something strange was happening outside. His dog, usually calm, began to growl and hide under the table. The man stepped outside and looked up. The sky above the valley was black, not the kind of black from clouds, but deeper, like something was covering the stars. He whispered to himself, "This is not normal." Then it happened. The first alien ship moved lower, cutting through the clouds like a silent blade. It made no sound, no engine noise, no lights, but its presence was like a cold wave. Every bird in the forest flew away at once. Streetlights went out. Car alarms went off without reason. The technician grabbed his radio, but it only hissed with static. The world was being cut off piece by piece. Inside the alien command deck, their leader raised a clawed hand and gave the order. Begin the operation. Their landing crafts prepared to launch. But as the order went out, something strange happened. The ship on the far left of their formation disappeared. It didn't explode. It didn't fall. It just vanished. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. The crew thought it was a sensor error. They tried to re-establish connection, but there was no signal. It was as if the ship had never existed. Confusion spread among the aliens. Technicians shouted reports. Pilots checked their instruments. No one could explain it. Then another ship disappeared. And then another. No one fired. No one saw anything. The black sky swallowed them one by one. Fear crept into the alien ranks. These were warships, each the size of a city. Nothing in their history had ever erased a fleet without a trace. On Earth, people saw nothing but darkness. But somewhere deep underground, ancient machines began to hum. Systems long hidden from the world turned on silently. Screens flickered to life in forgotten bunkers. No soldiers moved on the surface. No jets scrambled into the sky. Earth didn't react the way the aliens expected. It waited, quiet, watching. In the alien flagship, panic was growing. Their leader demanded answers, but the crew could give none. They tried to scan the planet, but their scanners returned only black screens. They tried to contact the missing ships, but the calls bounced back empty. One officer whispered, "It's like the planet is eating us." No one laughed. No one argued. The fear was real now. Down below, the wind finally returned, blowing through the empty streets of cities, now covered in shadow. Dogs barked at nothing. Children cried without knowing why. And in the silent night, a single human satellite hidden far above activated, sending a short, encrypted message to an unknown location. They have arrived. Phase 1 complete. The alien fleet came to conquer. But they didn't know something far older and far stronger had been waiting for this night. The sky was no longer theirs. It belonged to Earth now, and Earth did not forgive trespassers. This was only the beginning. The alien fleet hovered above the planet like a wall of shadows, their black hulls hiding the stars behind them. On the flagship, the alien commander gave a calm order to begin the invasion. His voice was steady, but deep inside, every officer on that deck felt a strange chill. They ignored the earlier disappearances, convincing themselves it was a system glitch. No one dared to say the truth out loud. They had lost 3 massive ships without a trace, but the invasion had already started, and there was no going back. Their landing crafts detached from the mothership one by one, cutting through the clouds like silent knives. They moved fast, leaving no sound behind, their dark metal reflecting no light. Inside, alien soldiers sat in rows, armored and armed, their helmets glowing faintly from within. They had invaded many worlds before, crushed entire civilizations, but none of those planets had felt like this. The silence pressed against their helmets. The air outside the ships felt too thick, too heavy. Even their breathing echoed unnaturally loud. One of the soldiers shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He didn't know why, but his hands were shaking. On the ground, humans saw the sky darken even more. Strange lights flickered through the clouds, but there were no sounds, no thunder, no aircraft roar. It was as if something invisible moved above them. In the streets, cars stopped working. Radios died. Mobile phones turned into useless black screens. The silence spread through the cities like smoke. No planes took off. No armies moved. The world waited in the dark. The first landing craft entered the lower atmosphere, and the temperature around it dropped sharply. Frost formed on the metal, even as it burned through the clouds. Their instruments started blinking red for no reason. One pilot shouted that their radar was blind. Another said their navigation had vanished. The commander of the fleet demanded answers, but none came. They were descending into something they didn't understand. Then it began. One of the landing crafts vanished mid-descent. It didn't explode. No debris, no energy readings. Just gone. The second one vanished seconds later. Screams filled the comms, then silence. One by one, the dots representing the crafts disappeared from the flagship's map. The commander's hands tightened around the railing as a cold realization sank in. Something on Earth was not letting them touch the ground. On the surface, the air grew colder. Fog rolled across the streets of abandoned cities. Streetlights blinked once, then went dark. The humans weren't fighting, not yet. It was the planet itself that felt alive, breathing in silence. The alien ships that managed to break through the clouds hovered above empty roads and lifeless buildings. They scanned for targets but found nothing. Their heat sensors showed only cold shapes. Their motion detectors flickered. It was as if the cities themselves were watching them. These alien soldiers stepped out of their crafts, expecting to find terrified humans. Instead, they found a silence so thick it made their armor creak. The wind didn't move. The air smelled like metal and dust. One soldier whispered that it felt like the planet was listening. Another tried to contact the other squads, but the comms were dead. No voices answered. Only static. Back on the flagship, officers shouted over each other, trying to explain the sudden losses. Some wanted to retreat. Others said it was impossible. The commander slammed his hand against the console and ordered the invasion to continue. Pride would not let them turn back. They were the conquerors of galaxies, the rulers of 1,000 systems. Earth to them was just another weak world. They didn't understand that pride meant nothing here. A group of alien scouts entered a human street lined with houses. Every door was closed. Every window was dark. But they could feel eyes on them. One soldier raised his weapon, scanning the rooftops, but saw nothing. Another took a step forward, and his tracker blinked red for half a second before turning off. When the others turned to look at him, he was gone. No sound, no flash, no trace, just gone. The rest of the squad froze. They had never seen anything like this. Far beneath the earth, old machines continued to hum softly. Giant screens lit up inside secret bunkers. Deep frequencies rippled through the ground, but no human soldier was seen. Earth was watching, waiting, letting the invaders step deeper into the trap. The alien commander watched the numbers on his board shrink. Troops were landing, but their signals were fading one after another. He ordered emergency scans, but the only thing the sensors picked up was silence. Endless, unnatural silence. The kind that crushes courage. And in that silence, as more landing crafts descended, a single message pulsed through an old human satellite. Just 4 quiet words, let them come closer. The aliens thought the invasion had begun. They didn't know the real game hadn't even started yet. Earth was not fighting back. Earth was hunting. The alien soldiers spread through the empty streets, their boots echoing against cracked pavement. The air felt colder here, heavier, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. Their scanners showed nothing, no human life signs, no power sources, no defense systems. But they could feel something, a strange pressure in their chests, a pulse in the ground that didn't match any known weapon. One soldier tapped the side of his helmet, thinking the comms were broken, but the static only grew louder. Then through the fog, a single streetlight flickered, and every soldier stopped moving. The silence was not ordinary silence. It was alive. It followed their steps, crept into their helmets, made their breathing sound like thunder. The squad leader raised his hand, signaling for a scan, but the equipment returned only one line. Environment. Unknown. They had invaded countless worlds before, worlds that screamed when they arrived. But Earth wasn't screaming. Earth was listening. Far above, the alien commander grew frustrated. Troop signals were dropping one by one. No explosions, no combat alerts, just sudden emptiness. A squad of 40 soldiers in New York's sector vanished in an instant. Another patrol near the ruins of an old military base stopped transmitting. Every attempt to reconnect failed. The officers blamed the fog, the terrain, anything but fear. They didn't want to admit it out loud, but something was taking their people without a sound. On the ground, a young alien soldier pointed his weapon at a broken car. A shadow moved inside. He stepped closer, and the fog wrapped around him like fingers. His radio flared with static, then silence. When his squad turned to look, he was gone. No flash, no scream. Just an empty space where he had stood. The squad leader whispered a curse under his breath. This was not a battlefield. This was a graveyard waiting to close. All over the world, alien forces met the same silence. Empty cities, no resistance, no sound. Their heat scanners showed strange movements, shapes that looked human but moved too fast to be real. Some appeared on rooftops, some behind walls, but when soldiers aimed, they were gone. The fog grew thicker. Buildings creaked. Doors swung open on their own. For the first time in their long history of conquest, the invaders began to doubt their own senses. Inside a forgotten bunker deep below the mountains, human hands moved silently over glowing screens. No alarms, no open communications. This wasn't a war they wanted the world to see. Earth had prepared for centuries, not with loud weapons, but with quiet traps, silent defenses, and hidden systems older than the invaders' empire. The people controlling it didn't need to speak. The planet itself was doing the talking. On the alien flagship, panic slowly grew behind disciplined faces. Officers whispered about ships vanishing in orbit and ground units disappearing in the fog. One officer dared to say the word retreat, and the commander's glare silenced him instantly. They were conquerors. They didn't run. But as more signals vanished, the silence grew louder than their pride. Back on Earth, alien troops in the center of a ruined city formed a tight defensive circle. Their thermal scanners suddenly showed hundreds of moving dots closing in from all directions. But the dots made no sound, no footsteps, no engines. The soldiers raised their rifles, their hands shaking. One fired a warning shot into the fog. It echoed through the city like a scream, but nothing came out of the mist. Then the dots started disappearing too, one by one, as if the fog itself was swallowing them. High above the city, hidden satellites adjusted their positions, locking onto the invaders without them ever knowing. Invisible weapons waited in silence. Earth didn't need to rush. It let fear do the work first. The alien troops began turning on each other, shouting in confusion as more of them vanished into the mist. One soldier screamed through the comm, "We're not alone!" Then his voice cut off mid-sentence. The commander on the flagship slammed his claws against the console. He demanded a full map of troop positions. What appeared instead was a blinking screen full of empty coordinates. Entire squads gone, entire regions quiet. They came to crush Earth with strength. But strength meant nothing in a world that refused to show its face. The silence spread like a storm. It crawled into their ships, into their helmets, into their thoughts. And for the first time in the history of their empire, an entire army realized they weren't the hunters here. They were the prey. Beneath the quiet surface of Earth, far below cities, forests, and empty highways, a network of ancient bunkers came alive. Cold steel walls lit up with lines of soft blue light as hidden systems awakened for the first time in decades. Generators rumbled deep underground, not loud enough to be heard on the surface, but strong enough to shake the air itself. These bunkers were not new. They were built long before the invaders ever entered this part of the galaxy. They had been waiting. Every human who had ever spoken of them was sworn to silence. This was the real shield of Earth, the power that no alien scanner had ever detected. Inside one of the main control bunkers, rows of human operators sat in silence. Their faces were calm, their movements precise. No shouting, no panic. They didn't need loud commands. Every action was already planned, every defense locked in place long before the alien fleet even crossed the solar system. A single man in a dark uniform watched the screens, showing the alien positions, blinking and disappearing in real time. They were inside the trap now. He didn't need to give orders. The system knew what to do. Above the ground, the alien troops continued to push forward through abandoned cities and fog-covered streets. Their scanners twitched between static and blank screens. Some soldiers began to panic quietly, whispering through broken comms. But there was nowhere to run. Their ships above were losing contact with each other. Landing zones that were once safe were now silent, empty spaces. Suddenly, in the orbit above Earth, the alien commander's board lit up with alerts. One of their largest ships, the destroyer leading the west flank, had gone completely dark. No explosion. No power surge, just gone as if the blackness of space itself had swallowed it. Then another, and another. In less than a minute, 5 massive ships had vanished without a trace. The crew shouted over each other, begging for explanations. No one had any. Deep under the ocean floor, something moved. A massive steel structure older than most countries opened like a silent beast. Long dark arms rose through the water, cutting through the currents. The ocean above stayed calm, not a single wave breaking. But the alien sensors picked up sudden bursts of energy they couldn't track. It wasn't coming from a ship. It was coming from the planet itself. On the surface, alien soldiers gathered near what they thought was a power station. They surrounded it, ready to break in. But before the first soldier could touch the gate, the ground beneath them vibrated. It was not an earthquake. It was controlled. A low hum filled the air, almost like a heartbeat. Then the lights above them flickered, and a strange shimmer passed over the entire street. Their weapons shut off instantly. Their energy cells drained to zero. Every light in their armor went black. In that moment, they realized something terrifying. They were not fighting humans. They were fighting a living defense system that could touch everything they carried. On the alien flagship, the commander clenched his fists as data vanished from his screens. Ships disappeared, weapons shut down. Soldiers screamed through broken signals. A young officer ran to him with shaking hands. "Sir," he whispered, "it's like the planet knows where we are. Hidden satellites, cloaked in layers of technology not even the most advanced alien empires understood, aligned in perfect formation. They didn't fire lasers or missiles. They sent pulses, silent, invisible, unstoppable. Those pulses wrapped around the alien ships like a net. One by one, their engines died. One by one, their thrusters fell silent. In orbit, the great fleet began to drift, powerless. Back on the ground, the fog thickened. It wasn't just weather anymore. It was a controlled field, shaped and released by the defense systems below. It bent sensors. It crushed signals. It turned technology into dead weight. The alien soldiers tried to retreat to their landing crafts, but their crafts didn't respond. Their controls were frozen. Even their emergency beacons refused to light. In one control room deep below an old mountain range, a single button glowed red. A human hand hovered over it, but didn't press it yet. They were not here to destroy the invaders immediately. They were here to make them disappear without a sound. It was the plan from the beginning. Let the invaders walk deeper into the darkness until they realize there's no way out. The alien commander screamed orders, but nothing reached the ground. His fleet was blind, deaf, and slowly vanishing. The once mighty invaders, who had crushed worlds without a fight, now stood surrounded by shadows on a quiet blue planet. Earth's voice was never loud. It didn't need to roar. It whispered through the fog, through the cold wind, through the silence that wrapped around every alien heart. And every soldier could feel it now. Something vast, something alive beneath their feet, something that had been waiting for them for a very long time. This wasn't just a planet. This was a trap built to swallow entire armies whole. And it had just started to close. High above the planet, the once proud alien fleet floated in silent confusion. The stars that usually looked clear from their warships now seemed to blur behind waves of interference. Their mighty engines, built to conquer entire systems, hummed weakly or not at all. On the flagship, the commander stared at a screen that showed more red than green. Entire ships had gone dark. Dozens of landing squads had lost contact, and the fog around Earth was growing thicker by the hour. No explosions, no battle cries, just quiet, cold vanishing. Inside the command deck, officers whispered in fear. The room, that once buzzed with confident orders, now echoed with broken voices and blinking alarms. One officer slammed his clawed hand on the console and shouted that they should retreat. Another tried to send a signal to the ground units, but every transmission came back empty or filled with static, like someone or something was swallowing their voices. The commander tried to keep his face calm, but even he could feel the pressure in the air. Something down there was not just defending, it was hunting. On one of the smaller escort ships, a pilot stared out of the window into the black space around Earth. A massive cruiser floated just a few kilometers away. He blinked and it was gone. Not destroyed, not cloaked, gone. The pilot screamed over the comms, but his signal was full of noise. No one answered. The empty black sky stared back at him, and in that silence, every soldier in orbit realized they might not make it home. Meanwhile, deep in the fog-covered cities below, alien squads moved in broken formations. Their helmets flickered. Their weapons were heavy and useless. Some whispered into their radios just to hear a voice, but there was none. Every squad felt more alone than ever. Fear had taken root in their minds, spreading faster than any weapon. Soldiers who had crushed entire civilizations now trembled with each step. On the flagship, a young communications officer finally broke down and whispered, "They're not fighting us. They're erasing us." The commander's head snapped toward him, but he didn't correct the words. He couldn't. Everyone in that room felt the same thing. It was not a war. It was a disappearance. Earth wasn't defending territory. Earth was cleansing it. Then came the sound. A low, deep vibration, like a heartbeat, shook the hull of every alien ship in orbit. It wasn't coming from their engines. It was coming from the planet below. It spread through their ships, through their armor, even into their bones. Some soldiers ripped off their helmets, thinking it was a trick of their systems. But the sound was real. It wasn't noise. It was a message. You are not in control here. One of the alien destroyers tried to fire its main cannon at the surface, desperate to strike something. But the moment its energy core charged, the entire ship blinked out like a light being switched off. Every camera on the flagship caught it. The destroyer didn't explode. It simply vanished into the darkness, leaving nothing behind. A dead silence filled the bridge. Even the alarms seemed to lower their voices. The fog on the ground grew so thick it swallowed entire streets. Some soldiers fired their weapons into the mist, screaming into the void. Others ran without direction. They didn't know what was hunting them. They didn't even know if they were being hunted at all. That made it worse. Back in orbit, the commander leaned forward, his claws gripping the control panel. His once powerful fleet now felt like a graveyard. Only a handful of ships remained connected, and even those were fading fast. A cold truth began to crawl into every soldier's heart. They might never return home. A quiet voice came through the static, a frightened alien pilot, whispering from somewhere on the edge of the fleet. "They're taking us one by one." Then the voice cut off. No trace, no echo. The commander's jaw tightened. His army was not losing a battle. It was being erased from existence. And far below, deep beneath the ground, Earth's hidden machines pulsed brighter, as if the planet itself could feel their fear. The trap was fully closed now, and the invaders were no longer a threat. They were prey caught in the dark. On the flagship, the alien commander stood alone in the darkened control room, his claws digging into the metal railing. The once brilliant fleet was now nothing but a graveyard, floating in silence. Most of their ships had vanished without a trace. The remaining ones were drifting powerless, their lights dim, their engines silent. The crew spoke in whispers, as if even their voices might anger the thing watching them from below. Every screen showed static. Every sensor returned nothing. They had come to conquer a planet, but now they couldn't even see it. It was as if Earth itself had swallowed their entire war machine. Below them, the fog-covered cities were graveyards of their own. Squads that had landed were gone, their trackers dead. No screams. No battles! Just empty signals blinking on and off before disappearing completely. The silence wasn't just around them anymore, it was inside them. A suffocating presence pressing against their minds. Many had faced wars, explosions, and fierce resistance. But this was different. This was quiet, cold, and patient. It made their strongest soldiers shake without knowing why. In the command deck, a technician finally whispered the question everyone had been avoiding. "Commander, what if Earth isn't just defending?" The room froze. No one wanted to hear it, but it was the truth they all felt. This wasn't a defense. This was a trap carefully built for centuries. A perfect machine hidden behind peaceful skies. They hadn't attacked a weak planet. They had walked into something far older and smarter than them. Far below the surface, deep under frozen soil and mountains, the true heart of Earth's defense pulsed. It was not just human technology. It was something larger, something that had been built generation after generation, hidden from alien eyes, buried beneath oceans, deserts, and forgotten cities. Its power stretched through satellites, magnetic fields, and invisible frequencies that bent enemy technology like it was paper. It didn't need soldiers to fight. It just waited until its enemies came close, and then erased them. In orbit, one of the last remaining alien ships tried to send a long-range distress call. It reached out into the black, hoping someone would answer. But before the signal could leave Earth's orbit, it was cut. The entire ship blinked out like all the others. No light, no wreckage, no trace. The crew on the flagship screamed into dead comms. They were watching themselves die one by one, and they couldn't even fight back. The commander slammed his fist against the console. His voice shook as he shouted to launch everything they had. But the weapons didn't answer. Their systems were still on, but something else was controlling them. Their warship no longer belonged to them. The bridge lights flickered. The temperature dropped. And then, for the first time since the invasion began, a sound filled the room. A low, deep hum. It didn't come from their engines. It came from the planet below. That sound was not random. It was a warning. A final message before everything ended. One of the officers whispered with trembling lips, "We were never fighting humans. We were fighting Earth itself." Down below, the hidden bunkers pulsed brighter. Old metal structures shifted as if they were alive. A silent countdown had begun, and no one outside the planet even knew. The fog on the surface thickened like a living thing, swallowing every street, every ship, every trace of the alien army. The commander looked out at the black sky, realizing the horrible truth. They had not discovered why no one returned from attacking Earth. They had become part of that truth. They were the next ghosts, and in that moment, the silence didn't just feel heavy. It felt final. Earth was not begging for mercy. It was delivering a message to the stars. Come here and vanish. A single alien cruiser remained above Earth, floating helplessly in the cold darkness. Its engines were silent, its shields useless, its crew whispering prayers to gods who could no longer hear them. Around it, the stars were blocked by the black fog rising from the planet below, spreading slowly like a tide. In the command room, broken screens flickered weakly, showing scattered static where once there had been an entire fleet. There was no one left to call for help. Every Allied ship was gone, vanished without light, without sound, without even a scream. The commander stood alone at the center of the deck, staring at the void where his army had once been. Pride had brought him here, but now there was only a hollow weight in his chest. He could feel the silence pressing on the ship like a living thing, creeping through the walls, filling the air. No one had fired a shot. No battle had ever happened. They had walked into a planet that didn't fight with weapons. It erased. It consumed. A young officer knelt near the comms console, hands shaking as he typed out a final distress call. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Someone has to know. Someone out there has to hear." The commander gave a slow nod. They would send one last signal into the galaxy. Not a request for reinforcements. Not a cry for revenge. A warning. The message was short. No coordinates, no names, no battles. Just 5 words, "Do not attack this planet." As the officer pressed send, the hum began again. That low, endless heartbeat that came from Earth. The lights dimmed. The screens turned to black. Outside, the fog rose higher, wrapping around the cruiser like a shadowed hand. One by one, systems died. Gravity slipped. Engines failed. The commander didn't shout. He just closed his eyes and whispered something only his crew could hear. We were never the hunters. Then the ship vanished. No debris, no light, no echo. Just silence. Far below, in a bunker buried beneath the mountains, a small green light turned off. A man in a dark uniform leaned back in his chair, watching the last enemy disappear. Around him, silent operators slowly powered down the defense network. The hum beneath the planet faded. The fog began to retreat. The stars returned to the night sky as if nothing had ever happened. No human army had been seen. No shot had been fired. The invasion that began with power ended with silence. In deep space, a relay satellite caught the last broken signal and drifted into the dark. No alien empire would ever hear the full story. They would only hear the warning. And for generations to come, the name of this blue planet would spread through the galaxy like a quiet threat whispered in the dark. Do not attack Earth. And beneath the soil, in the cold, sleeping bunkers, the defense network waited again, silent, patient. A trap that did not rust. It would not boast. It would not beg. It would only wait for the next fleet foolish enough to arrive. Because Earth didn't forgive, Earth erased.